YouTubers, Mike Martin's here, Mike Martin's channel, bringing you another special edition of Trends in the Housing Market. Today is Wednesday, March 15, 2017, and it is looking like spring out there. It's nice and warm and sunny. I did some gardening today. Don't forget to follow my show, my other part of my channel called Living the Dream. Really good section of my channel. Anyways, I got a lot of good articles here from all over the English-speaking world where it's a very common trend that's happening, and it's housing. And housing has been unobtainable. People being bought out of the market. Australian proper, New Zealand proper, Canadian proper, American proper, can't even buy in their own countries. Well, America's still kind of big. You know, it's big. So there's lots more in the United States, more infrastructure. But Canada, a lot of countries are suffering right now, and a lot of people are leaving their towns. I left my city, moved to a smaller town, bought a gigantic house for 1/10 of the cost I would have bought in another major city. So that's overheating. The trend right now is not good. Same story across the board. And we're going to head off right now to the United States of America. And this is a really important article from this morning. It says, "Are we heading towards another subprime mortgage crisis?" Very important article. It kicks off by saying the Federal Reserve bailed out Bear Stearns on March 14th, 9 years ago. What has the Fed learned from that mistake? Not enough, perhaps. So let me scroll down to the point of this article. It's a very long article. I'll leave a link below so if you want to read the whole thing. It goes on to saying here, there is one critical difference between today's situation and of that of 2008. There is very little private capital that would be at risk if there's another subprime mortgage bust. Before the crisis, there was some market discipline. However, imperfect it was, because potential buyers of mortgages would look at their quality carefully. Now only Fannie and Freddie are examining the quality of the mortgages, and it is taxpayers who would carry the burden of bailing out Fannie and Freddie, since their obligations are guaranteed by the U.S. government. According to Fannie and Freddie annual reports of 2016, it is surely the case that the subprime mortgage issuance, it doesn't say insurance, it says issuance, is one of force driving house prices once again, up by 30% over the past 4 years, and now about back to elevate the peak in 2006. Will subprime debt begin to fail again when the house prices level off? That's the question. That's the main question on a lot of speculators' minds right now. Why isn't the Fed talking about this matter? Someone please convince me that this time it's different. Comment below, let me know what you guys think on that. I'll leave an article. It's a really long article, and it just gets into the history of what happened in 2007 and 2008. Really good refresher course for those who don't know much about that time, you know, because it was like 9 years ago. So for those that are entering the housing market now or looking to buy your first time home, I'll leave a link below. Take a refresher course on what happened in the United States and how it sent a ripple effect throughout his country. Let's move into Oregon. Oregon's waking up. Wake up, Oregon. Wake up, Oregon. Oregon's housing crisis too big to ignore. It's happening. It is happening along the entire west coast of the United States, from San Diego all the way up to Seattle. Oregon's housing crisis too big to ignore. Oregon has a housing crisis, and it is our shared responsibility to solve it. Well, community, work together. The instability caused by evictions and lack of affordable houses are not the new issues. Low-income people and communities of color can attest to that. But the depth and breadth of the problem has finally made it too big to ignore, especially as more people move here while current public policies fail to keep up with the times. The legislature made some progress in this year's session. We prioritize additional spending and made a handful of seismic changes. I'm glad we made the progress, but I'm not satisfied. We need to talk next steps about what more we can do to solve this crisis. So very, very good, very good and article. And goes on to say here, in quotation says, here's one uncomfortable but very real problem. Some developers and property owners are making excessive profit and benefiting from this housing crisis. Push the red alert button because it's happening now in Oregon. So what does this mean for Oregonians who are evicted? They are typically poor, often women, and disproportionately people of color. Their whole lives are suddenly disturbed. Their kids may have to switch schools mid-year, and with an eviction on their record, their search for an available or affordable place to move will likely be extremely difficult and tragically impossible. So guys, Oregon is starting to see early signs of what's happened in Vancouver, Sydney, Melbourne, Auckland. They're starting to see London, what's happening here. We need to come together to have the difficult, honest conversation that will lead to meaningful solutions. It's time to prioritize human right to safe, affordable housing. So it's a hot article. I wanted to share that with you guys. This is Vancouver. This Tale of Two Cities. Let's call this one the Tale of Two Cities. And it's from Vancouver and Seattle. This is Vancouver Deja Vu. How Seattle's housing market is making way for foreign buyers. And in bold it says, BC's foreign buyers tax continues to funnel foreign investors into Washington state, says Seattle broker. It's been 6 months since the provincial government introduced a foreign buyers tax to cool the hot housing market, and scores of Seattle realtors have been taking advantage ever since. In the months following the introduction of the landmark policy, businesses down south has been booming at near exponential rate, according to Seattle real estate broker Dean Jones. We have networks with brokers in Vancouver that are referring buyers to us in Seattle, said Jones, the CEO of Realogistics Sotheby's International. We have numerous clients that have said they're selling in Vancouver and going to do it all over again in Seattle. In many ways, it's just Vancouver deja vu. That's in quotations, by the way. And it says, Jonas says the introduction of the foreign buyers tax last summer almost immediately sent a ripple through Seattle's housing market. By the end of the year, roughly half the luxury homes sold in the area were to foreign buyers, up from a third in 2015 and 25% in 2014. We're seeing an almost exponential interest in investing in the Seattle, Bellevue metro area. Deja vu. Jones says the trends are eerily similar to Vancouver in the late 90s, when housing prices began their steep ascent. He says that Seattle prices are far from affordable than Vancouver's, meaning that there's significant opportunity on high return in near term. That's horrible. It's playing with people's futures that are trying to buy into the market. See, what the problem is, when people that are working families don't buy into the market, the problem is that a lot of towns turn ghost towns. They start becoming empty. You don't see families out. You don't see people barbecuing. You don't see kids riding their bikes playing hockey on the street. It starts adding up. Things start to add up, and then you know what happens? The water company and the electric company starts complaining. Hey, these guys are using 10 liters of water per year in their house. We put these hookups there to make money off people. And the electric company charges maybe $30 a year because there's no electricity being used in the house. And they're like, hey, what's up with the hookups here? Taxpayers paid to put these hookups in to these homes. You know what I mean, right? And It's an appealing option. Jonas says that Seattle is well on its way to becoming a major draw for China's upper middle class. He says that the city's prized public school system, robust economy, job opportunities, and growing Asian population make it particularly appealing for Chinese families. In turn, the city's realtors are making a concrete effort to network with prospective buyers. Many of our local brokers are pairing up with Chinese real estate agents and helping them translate to understand the cultures and the concierge-like service that necessary that when you're dealing with overseas buyers, he said. We've actually created our own all-Mandarin magazine called Seattle Luxury Living, and it's full of advertising from luxury condos, automobiles, fashion, travel, of course, real estate, lifestyle products, and the market here is preparing itself for what is increasing consumer base that is Chinese, he added. Jones says that the real estate agents will continue to monitor how the buyer's tax influences real estate in BC. He admits brokers down south have learned some lessons from Vancouver housing market. The real estate community is taking plenty of lessons, including Mandarin. So guys, let me ask you guys a question about this. What do you guys think about this? I want you guys to weigh in on this. If they know it's going to become like that, why are they selling out the youth that live in the Seattle area? If they know it's going to become a problem, why don't they implement laws now so that it's affordable for the American proper to buy? So this is back to selling out to the highest bidder. That's what it is. It's selling out to the highest bidder, and it's not good for the American proper. The American proper is screwed. Anyways, comment below. Let me know what you think. I mean, something's got to be done. They're gonna let it ride. It looks like Seattle's gonna let it ride until they get protests like in Vancouver and people complaining that they can't afford to live there. You know, I couldn't change things. I left. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, let's go to another Vancouver article here. Douglas Todd, a smarter tax would ease Vancouver's housing crisis. This is one that was sent to me. Is it time for elected officials to finally get serious about Metro Vancouver's housing crisis? So Vancouver's still trying to fix this crisis that's been going on for the last decade. Unaffordably remains catastrophic level. The real estate bubble has not deflated in 8 months after BC government applied a 15% tax for foreign buyers of Metro real estate. The number of house sales is down, but prices are stuck at all-time highs, with condo values actually increasing. Metro Vancouver's affordability rate, according to Demographia, remains the third worst in English-speaking world. So someone's watching my videos there. Somebody in this, whatever it is watching these videos, because I keep calling it the English-speaking world or English-speaking countries. They keep seeing, but yes, it's affecting the do you know why it's affecting the countries? It's affecting because English-speaking countries have a different democratic system. They have free trade, open, free market. So when people come in, they just come in and buy, and they sell to the highest bidder. And Vancouver's been doing it for too long that the Vancouver proper or Canadian proper can't buy. So they leave, but they take the Canadian culture with them. They take what they've learned, like they take everything with them. And what becomes of the cities after? Anyways, the number of houses sales are down, but prices struck all-time highs, with condo values actually increasing. I'm going to continue here because I just read that. The status are chilling for young families when the ratio of real estate prices to local earnings is 3-1, and the city's housing is considered barely affordable, but Metro Toronto's ratio is gut-crunching 13-1. 13-1. I had to say it twice in case your ears didn't believe what I told you. The insanity of today's market is symbolizing a small, mossy house on a 33-foot lot in West 2nd, Vancouver. It's for sale for $3 million. Which brings us to taxation. Even though Canadians learned the rhetoric of tax hating from pundits and politicians, taxation is what makes society work in ways that are fair. You see, the problem is what's going to happen is the people that leave that are paying taxes in the city, like we're talking about a lifetime contract. So when you go, think of it as a cell phone plan. Think of it as a cell phone plan for life. when you're working and you're working for the private when you're working for the private sector. Think of it as a cell phone lifer plan. You're deducting to your CPP, IUI, unemployment. You're deducting. You're paying your dues. Once all that leaves, they need to make up that revenue, and they go through housing, and they start to raise the prices on houses. Or taxes, sorry, the taxes on the housing sector. Because now the people that were paying their dues in those cities no longer are paying their dog licenses, no longer are paying insurance for those cities anymore, housing insurance, everything gets taken away to other cities. Indeed, a study across 57 countries, more than 1,100 housing markets found taxation is decisive. The Bank of International Settlements, in a report by Kenneth Kuttner, and Ilok Shim, came to the bald conclusion: taxation was the only policy tool with discernible impact on high housing prices. So they got to tax the crap. But the problem is the family that's supposed to be living there, when it's affordable housing, isn't on that life plan where they're deducting and paying their dues. The house is empty. And that's a problem. So let's continue here. Toronto housing will come down with a bang. We're heading out to the city of Toronto, people. Toronto housing will come down with a bang. The housing market in Toronto is definitely something that's going to come down, and come down with a bang. Not enough is being done in order to control it. This is just an accident waiting to happen. On the impact of potential capital gains tax hike. The existing entrepreneurs will say, why stay in Canada if I'm going to be taxed not only 52%, which I'm currently taxed, but I'm going to be taxed higher than that. There's no reason for them to stay. That's a big topic, and we'll talk about that some other time on another show. Lots is happening in Toronto that's fueling this housing market, and it's going up. And the percentages it went up, it's phenomenal. Like I said, it went up. I'm trying to find it here. It went up, I think, 36% from the last year. That's huge. So if you bought in the last 5 years with these, if you bought in the last 3, actually, if you bought in the last 3 years, you're laughing right now. Because you basically almost doubled the property of your house. But the problem is, like the last trends in the housing market I was talking about, when you sell, where do you go? It's hard to move up, upgrade, and it's the only way to go is downgrade. So let's go into Canadian business. How Canada's biggest banks have become complacent in the housing bubble. Canada's big banks have become addicted to mortgages, and it's been incredibly profitable. But now we're seeing the consequences of the debt binge. So this has 0 comments on it and 0 shares. So nobody cares about what's really going on. You know what I'm saying? So let's jump into the article here where it says, he flagged the Financial Post, somewhat dangerous. Mix of catalysts that are pushing prices even higher, including the rich international buyers that Vancouver chased away last year with the 15% tax to deflate its housing bubble. You're seeing a 20% price growth in the market where you shouldn't see that much. McKay said of his hometown, that's concerning. That's not sustainable. Therefore, I do believe we are now at a point where we need to consider similar types of measures that we saw in Vancouver. So it says right here, I'll get into the numbers. I was talking about this in the last article. It said that on March 3rd, reported the average selling price of a detached home in the Greater Toronto Area was $1.2 million in February, 32.5% increase from the year earlier. So I want to bring this out there. This is a very long article, people. This article is about 8 pages long. I'll leave a link below to the article. It's because it's just not working out, and they should have learned from Vancouver, but no one's learning from other cities' mistakes. And it says here, Toronto is another article. Toronto isn't growing fast enough to justify its bubble prices. The latest census figures show Canada's largest city growing at its slowest rate in 40 years, yet home prices are still booming. That isn't sustainable. Yeah, of course it isn't. But 99,000 empty homes. Don't forget that. Last summer, in the frankest terms possible, Bank of Canada Governor Stephen Pelosi warned that homebuyers, homeowners, mortgage lenders, and real estate industry that nothing justifies Toronto's skyrocketing house prices. Nothing. Zip, zilch, nada. So it just came out of the air. A disease came over people to start buying houses at whatever price and overprice and bid on them, right? Yeah. Toronto didn't get the message. In its recent outlook for 2017, Toronto Real Estate Board said it expects the average house price in the Greater Toronto Area to surge by another 100,000 this year to 825. That would be on top of 120,000, or roughly 20% increase in 2016. In making its forecast, the board repeatedly credited one factor for driving higher prices in Toronto: population growth. I highly doubt that. If you got 99,000 empty homes in Toronto, multiply that by 3 to 5 people on average per home. Where are those people? They're not living in those empty homes. Anyways, I'm going to scrap that article. Let's keep going. We got to go to the United Kingdom. UK house prices rise at its fastest for a 4-year as London market rebounds. 0.6% increase in values lifted the average £297,000. UK house prices rose in their fastest pace in the last month, as a high-value London property showed signs of rebound. So this is not good for the people living in London. The English proper, UK proper, is having a really hard time coming to terms that they can't afford to live in their own city. I spoke Quite a few people message me from the United Kingdom and tell me the same thing. Over 2016, the UK capital was one of the worst performers among 10 regions analyzed, partially due to the weakness in prime locations because Brexit and tax changes. Lack of affordability has also contributed to the slowdown, with data by Lloyds Bank last month showing the average home in the capital cost more than 10 times annual earnings. Jesus wept. Last week, data from Halifax showed home prices in 31% of the UK's local authority districts have risen more than the total of the average take-home pay of workers in the area over the past 2 years. While homeowners will have to sell their houses to realize those gains, it is illustrious how quickly people have risen, as well as how hard it's been for new buyers to get into the property ladder. The biggest gap was in Haringey, a North London borough where house prices increased on average £139,000, exceeding the average take-home earnings by £91,450. That is £3,810 per month. Wow. I shouldn't be laughing, but this is happening. It is happening, people. Let's go. Let's run off to this article. Is a really good one by the Financial Review. And it is coming from Australia. Let's head out to Australia. From New South Wales. Very important for all you Australians, Aussies out there listening to this report. Foreign buyers buying 11% of New South Wales homes. This is huge, guys. New South Wales government is under pressure to lift stamp taxes for foreign home buyers after new figures showed they account for 11% of all sales. Figures released under Freedom of Information laws of the New South Wales Office of the State Revenue shows that the foreign citizens accounted for 11% of the 28,141 residential homes purchased in New South Wales from July to September last year. That's July, August. That's 3 months. Chinese purchased over 32% of those properties, followed by British and New Zealanders at 11%. and Indians at 10%. Some of the best houses are being sold to Chinese social media site WeChat. The figures reflect the period after June budget when the New South Wales government imposed a 4% surcharge on stamp duty for property purchases by foreigners and a 0.75% land tax surcharge. The tax hikes were supposed to reduce the share of foreigners in the overheated Sydney property market, where prices climbed 18 points in the last 12 months, but the figures suggest that they have little effect. So this is a very long article. I'm going to leave a link below in the articles section. It is very important that you read through this article. It's really long, people. It gets into really nitty-gritty into a lot of... it's by the Financial Review, and they're very good when it comes to not predicting, but post-dicting, kind of telling what's happening. And now let's go back to the Sydney Morning Herald. And this contradicts what this other article just said. Reserve Bank worried about collapse in apartment prices. The Reserve Bank is considering tighter bank lending standards amid concern how the financial system would handle a collapse in housing prices, beginning with Brisbane apartments. Oh my God, have the collapse. It's a market. Markets go up and down. People will be underwater. It happens. It needs to happen because the people from 10 years ago that couldn't afford to buy in are 30 now. So the people that were 20 that wanted to buy who are 30 now could afford to buy, pay their taxes, pay their dues through their taxes through work. People in Australia being taxed to death. I think they're getting taxed 52%. They're taxed to death already. Let them have a home. The Reserve Bank, it's the bank's assistant governor financial system, Michael Bullock, told a business event in Sydney that the Reserve Bank was particularly uneasy about the looming oversupply of apartments in Brisbane, and particularly the possibility in some parts of Melbourne. Tower glut, too many apartments. Brisbane could see up to 50 new high-rise towers in the next 20 years, but there may be not enough renters to fill thousands of CBD units. 7 News, Queensland. Sydney apartments were less of a worry. There are indicators that in the event of a downturn, there might be a systematic issues for the banking system, she said. And then he goes on to say, in the year of January, landing property investors climbed 27%. Investors borrowed $13.8 billion that month, more than the $13.6 billion that were lent to co-owner occupiers. Of the $13.8 billion, and $1.2 billion was for building new homes. So it's, once again, a very long, in-depth article, very well written. And this is a really good part in quotations here. We don't want households to find themselves in a situation where they have to emergency sell or whatever because they can't afford it anymore. Well, it has to happen. It's a market. You sell your stocks. If you're scared, you never sell your stocks when they go down because they end up bouncing. But if you're scared, a lot of people get scared and they get fidgety and they start selling. They're like stocks. They go up. What goes up must come down. Buy low, sell high. It happens. I mean, it's very basic business practice. Let's head out to New Zealand, and I'm going to wrap it up with New Zealand here. This is a really good one, people, for New Zealanders watching out there. New Zealand housing most unaffordable in the world. From ratio to pay to housing price, New Zealand is in a lot of trouble right now. New Zealand housing most unaffordable in the world. It's official. I'll say it again. New Zealand has the most unaffordable housing in the world, according to The Economist. Across 5 different measures, New Zealand has come out on top of 3 of 5 measures of the most expensive global housing market. New Zealand has had the highest rise in house prices, costs the most against the average person's income. That's what I said before, but that's true. And now has the biggest difference between housing prices and renting prices. In the latest edition of The Economist, figures show that in the past 46 years, New Zealand's house prices have risen more than 8% on average a year. 8% a year. You can never get that on anything. There's nothing that goes 8% a year right now. I remember when the banks used to offer 4% a year, 4% per year, 4% per year on your house, your savings account. Now they're offering 0.02%. It's a trend repeating among the first world countries, including the United Kingdom, which had 7.65% average rise annually over the same time frame as Australia, where house prices rose by 6.4% of the year average. Are you guys seeing the pattern here? It's all English-speaking countries, the English-speaking world. They are basically where it is a free market. It's an open free market. Come in and buy. And they're selling, politicians are selling to the highest bidders. Period. That's it. Politicians are not doing anything about it, so they could sell to the highest bidders, so they could stimulate with taxes and all this Mickey Mouse that they're doing and all these measures they're putting in to stimulate it, because the Australian or the Canadian or New Zealand proper can't afford no longer to live in those areas and can't afford to have families. It started a decade ago when people couldn't afford to have a family anymore. And people were massaged and believed into saying, I don't need a family. I don't need to start a family. I want to be single. I want to travel. I want to do this. I want to be independent. No, having a family is beautiful. It's the greatest thing you could have. And that's been taken away because of affordability. Now, housing. And I could bet you whatever you want. Transportation, cars. Cars in the next 10 years are going to be only for the elite because insurance is going to be too high. And people are going to be massaged into thinking, no, transit's the way to go. Be green, transit. No, they're taking everything away from us. They're taking everything away from you. And this is what's happening. When you're a free market, and that happens. Like I said this before, and I'm not trying to pick on Mexico. I'm not. Me encanta la gente mexicana. Me encanta la idioma, la música, la comida. I love Mexico. But when I went to Mexico and I went on 2 occasions, I wanted to buy a house there. And they told me, no, you're a foreigner. Well, what? You can't buy a house in Mexico. We don't want you here. So I couldn't buy a house in Mexico on 2 occasions. And I was going to buy a house free and clear because of 30 grand, 40. They wouldn't touch me. They wouldn't sell me a house. So I'm telling you guys, people need to start protecting their sovereignty because in 100 years, Australia won't be Australia anymore. Neither would Canada. It's going to be a complete different melting pot. And what the people worked and built for the last 300 years, and the people that pay their dues, and parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents that have paid their dues to society to build what they have today, to lose it all to the highest bidder. Anyways, get this out there. Share this on your social media platform. I'm the only guy that's talking about this. I don't know why. Let me know what you guys think. Comment below.